Amanda,
Hey, I tell people not.
those items.
I mean,
Got
I have two. Have to bring them out right now.
well,
One of them.
and about.
Hey, everybody, we're gonna open the meeting. I got 5:35 right on the button. Call to order.
Jim Basile,
Here.
Andy Dennison,
Present.
Lydia Patty Graffiti. Here. Chris Petras,
Here.
Elaine McNabb Coleman will be a little late. Bob Shay,
Present.
Hans Petcher,
Here.
Mark Strong,
Here.
Heidi Nightingale, present. Elaine Daly. Here. Tricia Kerr,
Here.
Christina Clarko. Here. Michael Didio,
He's here. I don't know where he is, but he's here.
Brian Monroe,
He's hiding.
David Gould.
Present. Okay, please stand for the pledge and stay standing for a moment of silence, please. I pledge allegiance to the flag
of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Okay, thank you. Be seated. Okay, we have no public hearing tonight, which is a good thing. That's a new thing. Let me just start off with a birthday. One of our legislators has a birthday today, 80 years young. Hans, happy birthday to you. Speech. Congratulations, Hans. May you live 80 more years.
Birthday kiss.
Okay, we have three proclamations. The first one is going to be with Christina, but we'll do that under her presentation. The next one is Freedom from Workplace Bullies Week, which has already been given out, but I just want everybody to know that that is October 15th to October 21st. The second one is The Wall That Heals. That has already been given out too, but anybody and everybody that attended that last week, I really truly appreciate it. It was a great thing. This is the third time the Healing Wall has been to Cayuga County. One was back in the 90s up at the park, and the last one was at Fort Byron, and then the third one was just last weekend. So thank you all very much for attending it, the ones that did attend and the one that helped set up and take down, but it was a great tribute to our Vietnam veterans, and we really, truly appreciate it. So thank you. Okay, presentations. We'll start right off with this. It's going to be out of order a little bit because Christina is going to talk second, but Auburn Hospital, we have here Scott Bellucci, the CEO and president of Auburn Hospital. Scott, welcome.
Thank you.
We got Tammy Sutherland, Senior Vice President of Equality. Tammy, raise your hand. Oh, you're up there. And the third is Matt, of Government Relations, Matt Chatterton. So thank you all three for coming. Appreciate it. As you know, I think you all know, Elaine and I are on the board of trustees at the hospital. I invited to Matt and the group to talk a little bit. There's so many new things going on at our local hospital. It's our only hospital, as you all know. We all should be very, very proud of it. It's come so far in the last 10 years, 15 years, 20 years. And it's really, really progressing now very quickly. So I wanted Matt and the group to update and give you some new things that are going on there and some new projects. So thanks, Scott.
Thank you very much, Chairman Gould, and Elaine Daly's on our board. Tony Franciselli is on our board. I'm going to keep it very short. It's Hans's birthday. As I went around and introduced myself to everybody, he said, nice to meet you. Keep it short. So there's a lot of exciting things happening at the hospital. First of all, I'd like to thank the county ledge. You guys gave us the county nursing home, which we had a lot of discussion about. Thank you so very, very much. We've been able to move 100, almost 200 of our back office workers out there. They absolutely love it. And it has created more room at the hospital. So thank you for that. I'm going to go over very briefly the highlights of the hospital. Tammy is really the registered nurse. She's the clinician. So if it gets into clinical stuff, I'll be deflecting. And I'm sorry. So over the next 2 years, the hospital will invest $40 million in construction and technology in Auburn and for Cayuga County. Our focus is on comprehensive cancer care, because a lot of us have to travel to Rochester and New York City and Syracuse for some of the just basic cancer care. That's the building you see going up on the corner. That's a $15 million spend, but we can't wait for it to be open in about January. Orthopedics is another large investment that's coming down the pipe. Also cardiology. I announced the Auburn Heart Institute. We were able to secure a $22 million grant from the state. A shout out to Dr. Gotteshaller and all those guys, but as they approach retirement age and as we all, have a lot of different heart issues, the state of New York put a tremendous amount of confidence in this administration and this hospital to care for cardiac patients for the next few decades. So as soon as we break ground, as soon as we cut the ribbon in January on the Heart Institute, we'll have a groundbreaking ceremony on the Cardiac Institute. Women's health, as well as the emergency room and urgent care. We also invested a ton of money in new physicians coming to town and technology. The challenge that we have is mental health. We do have the only 14-bed inpatient unit. Many of you don't know that we've opened a private outpatient office. So it's an alternative for folks to come. But I see tremendous need for child and adolescent. There just isn't enough services out there, and that is particularly disturbing to at least this administration. And so that's going to be one of our challenges. Addiction medicine also, inpatient as well as outpatient. And before I go through the slideshow, the one that really gets me is when we wind up with children in our emergency room. With child and adolescent psychiatric issues, there's nowhere to place them. They end up getting housed in the emergency room because it's the only safe place for them to be. And ladies and gentlemen, that just is unacceptable for any of us to have that be the level of service. We basically are the safety net. Now, you all should have received this. I want to recognize my associate, Matt Chatterton. He just has a way of taking like 5 encyclopedias of information and reducing it down to a couple of slides. So I guess you guys can appreciate this. And I'll try to sort of go through it quickly because I want to leave plenty of time for questions and comments. Auburn Community Hospital, the greatness of a community is measured most accurately measured by the compassionate action of its members. And I think everything we do is extremely compassionate. So this next slide is we keep talking about Auburn Memorial Hospital, Auburn Community Hospital. I'm here to tell you, we done grown up. We're not Auburn Hospital, just Auburn Hospital anymore. How are you? We're really Auburn. We're really a rural integrated delivery system, but we just don't wear it. We don't advertise it. Most of the physicians are employed by the hospital. All the doctors that we all went through to as kids and as adults, they're now all employed by the hospital. That's just been the trend. So all the doctor offices are employed by the majority by the hospital. The hospital is the hospital. We have the nursing home, and we just continue to add physicians. We have 70 doctors employed by the hospital. We call it the Auburn Memorial Medical Services, Inc. So we are an integrated network, and that's really what this slide talks about. We have community health. You know what our response was when COVID hit. We really wound up being the health center and doing the COVID testing and all of that. All of the ambulatory care, that's all the doctor offices that are out in the community. Of course, you guys know about the hospital, but we also have long-term care. The next slide is about quality recognition. I started here in 2007. Maybe Auburn didn't have the best of reputation. So I went about, Tammy and I, very diligently, looking nationally at, who is it out there that can come in, assess our quality, our patient safety. And, these are all federal and state agencies. And we just make sure that we're recognized as one of the best in terms of patient safety, quality of care. The next slide is economic indicators. everyone sees the hospital, as you should. But what you might not know is we're probably the largest economic engine that you have. We're a business. We're a $200 million business. I started, it was about 80 million or 90 million. We've doubled our footprint. So we're the largest employer in town. On average, I think we have 1,800 very well-paid jobs. We insist, that these doctors that are coming from outside of the area reside in Auburn. They all need to be responsive to the hospital. So, I mean, these are just some of the statistics we get from the Hospital Association. So we generate $24 million in tax revenue. Like, I looked at our payroll, and then I tried to calculate the local taxes that our payroll is paying, and it's about 24 million. We provide $10 million to uninsured and low-income folks. We see everybody regardless of the ability to pay, not only at the hospital, but all the doctor offices, because they're all subsidized by the hospital. We estimate the impact of the hospital to the local economy is about 227 million. We get that statistic from the New York Hospital Association. Our payroll is about 67 million, and we have about 1,500 jobs, and that just continues to escalate, and they're really good paying jobs. So what about the highlights for 2022? We see 23,000 patients in the ED. We deliver 400 babies. We see about 100,000 outpatients. Our doctor offices see 10,000 patients a month. And I keep saying to Tammy, there's not 10,000 people. That's a lot of people. Where are they all coming from? 120,000 office visits every single year coming through our system. So that's extremely powerful statistic. We have 26,000 urgent care visits. We have 3 urgent care centers. Our local doctors, the ones on our payroll, are seeing 10,000 office visits a month. We see 100,000 outpatients as well. Our laboratory does a $1.5 million lab tests. That's a tremendous amount of lab tests done by a small lab. And we go on to talk about how many doctors we employ, et cetera. Now, we're a big part of the community, as you know, and I just listed out, some of the highlights of what we've invested into the community. Dr. Surratt is our new CMO, and we're heavily invested in EMS as well. So what has the transformation journey been all about? Well, it kind of goes like this. I was able to secure like $15 million to build the cancer center. We're about to add a CT scan as well. We've opened several new doctor offices in the hospital. We added on the building that you guys allowed us to purchase, the administrative office building. And we also acquired for $4 or $5 million the medical office building that's right next to the hospital. So we continue to purchase, and we continue to grow. So I'm going to let Tammy just talk a little bit about cancer care, cardiac care, orthopedics, as well as women's health. So Tammy, you want to just hit the highlights of hematology, oncology, radiation oncology. And when we talk about cardiac care, you just might want to highlight the 5 cardiologists that we just hired and the CONs that we have in to start doing cardiac catheterizations. Tammy?
So with cancer care, anybody that's been touched by cancer knows that the first priority for anyone is time. There's a lot of time spent that is traveling to Syracuse, to Rochester, down to Albany and New York City to pursue the care that they need. On top of that, you're going and getting treatments. Then you have to drive home not feeling well. So our first priority with cancer care was to bring it closer to this community so that people were not traveling hours upon a time. And that's time that they can spend at home with their families. It's a time that they can spend coming home after the procedures and recovering in their own house in bed where they're most apt to feel better with it. We started out with the hematology oncology office in the hospital and started off at 2 days a week. We've expanded to 5 days a week. We've continued to expand the infusions into the weekend. With a new cancer center that we're building, it has the capability to do radiation, which also is something that's not local, so that those patients can receive the care here. We've expanded our infusion center, additional exam rooms, so we can continue with the specialties. On top of that cancer care, every day you have a specialty that comes in. It's not an oncologist taking care of an oncology. You have a breast specialist that does cancer of the breast. You have a lung specialist. So you have that opportunity to see the specialist that is particularly well-trained to care for that. We're trying to make everything closer to campus so that it's one-stop shopping. You come into the hospital, we have our Article 28 spaces, which are now in the hospital. You see your doctor, you can go downstairs, have your lab work done, radiology, all of that can be done in a day and you're on your way. We're expanding our pharmacy services to have outpatient services available for the community so that the community can take advantage of those services and pricing. Orthopedics, we have been growing in leaps and bounds with orthopedics. We do robotic surgeries. We have a new spinal surgeon that just started with us, Dr. Nolan, who is taking off with his surgeries as well. Again, not having to travel. The last thing you want to do when you're not feeling well is to travel an hour or have to go farther away. Also with cardiology care. Cardiology is similar to stroke. You all know that we went and got Stroke Death Center designated 12 years ago. At that time, the big focus is time is brain. That is a huge component, it still is, but that's the same for cardiology. The gold standard is to turn around and have a cardiac cath done within 60 minutes. So to have that service available here means that our patients will have that much better of an outcome. We have some of the top cardiologists that have joined us. Dr. Pravina Pachuri came from downstate New York, young, dynamic, has a big career ahead of her. Doria Scuticini, who also had a cardiac practice in Geneva, is with us and has brought her patients as well because they care for her so much in the care she provides. We are just continuing to try and bring more things to the community and be better at what we do. The recognition that we get for quality, Blue Distinction, those are special awards for which you have to meet strict criteria, for which we measure that criteria on an ongoing basis. We're trying to constantly strive to do better with those things. We've had Joint Commission accreditation since Mr. Bellucci came in 2010. That was something that the previous administration had given up. We've brought it back. That alone has close to 3,200 standards for which you have to abide by. These are the things that are validating that we are doing what we need to do to provide care to the community. Whatever is brought forth, we try to approach and go forward with. Prior to COVID, we did a lot with addiction services. Unfortunately, with COVID, a lot fell off. We're going to start focusing on those services again. As Mr. Berlucci said, adolescent psych. Unfortunately, if you read the papers and look at the news, a lot of the adolescent psych facilities have closed. That is the biggest growing group since COVID. These are the ones, the individuals that are affected. And unfortunately, COVID, is not something that's going to go away in the long term. It's going to get milder and milder, but still things that we'll have to address.
So we have plenty of challenges in cancer care. We partnered with Upstate. We didn't try to reinvent the wheel. So the same cancer doctors you would see at Upstate are now, I convinced them to come to Auburn. Cardiac care, a lot of that is coming from Rochester. Ron Kirshner is a great surgeon, a fantastic, individual, and he joined Auburn to help build our cardiac program. In orthopedics, Dan Alexander came from Geneva and Rochester, and he is just doubling the volume. He's on call 24/7. We have a sports orthopod and Dr. Wong. We have Dr. Rob Nolan, who was at St. Joe's for 20 years doing spine surgery. So we really have a good crew. Okay, so rounding it all up, what does the future look like? All right, the top. So you got the heart, you have the cancer center coming on board. We're growing women's health. We're growing orthopedics. A PET scan is radiology. If you have cancer, That's the device that measures the tumor and determines whether you still have it, don't have it, it's growing, it's not growing. Right now, it's almost 2 months, 3 months to get a PET scan in Syracuse or Rochester. We're going to bring one to Auburn, a mobile unit, like effective immediately. Like if I had cancer, I would want to know whether I'm in remission or whether it's growing. And so, and we're going to have a mobile unit until I have the time to build a permanent. New operating rooms, 3 new operating rooms, a cath lab. You have a rendering of the Heart Institute that's going to go right on the front of the hospital, either where the helipad is or administration. I'm also working with Upstate. We're going to be a medical school. Little old Auburn's going to be a medical school. We are a medical school. We just got approved for a family practice residency. So that means young doctors that are going to come to Auburn in years 2 and 3 and learn family practice residency from our doctors. So that's going to be a pipeline to keep doctors local. And we're also adding additional offices. The last slide is a rendering of the Heart Institute. That's just absolutely breathtaking, comprehensive heart care. And the last page gives you what our footprint is beginning to look like. I keep teasing Dave Gould. I got my eye on that county mental health building. He said, don't bring it up today. So I didn't bring it up. But I'm just saying, should it become available, I would be very, very interested, but I'm not supposed to say that. All right, so the last page is all the amazing doctors that we recruited. I'd like to put the name to the face, and that's what we've done here. Those are all the docs that we've hired that have come on board in the last year or two. They're all impeccably trained. They're all local, and this time next year, I could put another slide up there, and we'll double how many new docs are coming to Auburn. That concludes our presentation. I'd be more than happy to take any questions or comments. Matt, did I hit everything? Matt says I hit everything.
Anybody got anything? Because if you don't, I certainly do. Anybody got anything at all? All right, can you talk about, I know it's in the writing, but it wasn't mentioned and some people don't read. Can you tell us about our 5-star nursing home?
Speak to that inside and out.
Well, like I'm really, yeah.
Yeah, I mean,
So
some
the-
people don't have read the slides, I'm sure.
All right. So the Finger Lake Center for Living, right, is attached to the hospital. It's one of the only hospital-based long-term care facilities. I'm a licensed nursing home administrator, and my wife is a licensed nursing home administrator. When I started in 2007, I mean, it was a good nursing home. It wasn't. They did a good job, but they had a ways to go. So what 5-star nursing home means is there's only 1 or 2 5-star nursing homes in all of upstate New York, and Auburn Community Hospital has 1 of the 2. As Tammy said, in order to achieve 5-star recognition, you have to hit quality criteria, patient safety criteria, staffing criteria. We're the only hospital that has a doctor going to the nursing home every single day. We're the only hospital that has nurse practitioners in an 80-bed nursing home every single day. We're the only nursing home that if the resident doesn't feel well, all they got to do is go through a couple of double doors and they're in our emergency room. And simultaneously, we can discharge them, right back. But it's staffing, it's consistent staffing, it's the amount of medical intervention that we have. And it just so happens it's on the campus of the hospital. So I could really double its size. I wish there was an opportunity to double the size of the nursing home, because we would, not only would we fill it, but we would fill it and continue to provide 5-star services.
How many beds are there now?
80, it's 80 beds, So we're very, but really we're very skilled at that. Like, I don't want to take it away from any other nursing home, but what Cayuga has, if I may, and what Auburn has is between myself and my wife and Terry, as well as our nursing home, you guys basically have the best, really nationally recognized long-term care administrators, and we've demonstrated it by bringing Auburn to 5-star. Yeah, anyone, Elaine, okay.
Okay.
We had one over. Oh, yeah. Dave, can you help me out here?
I just wondered if the nursing home had a dementia unit.
Does it have a dementia unit? No, we don't have a dedicated dementia unit. So that's the answer to the question. But we've started a memory program, which is the beginnings of a dementia unit. Now, what we do have is our psychiatrists who cover the inpatient psychiatric unit, the 14-bed unit. One of them is doubly boarded in geriatrics. So I've combined those two, where he goes over and starts to assess the level of dementia in some of our residents. And from there, we're identifying who has early Alzheimer's, who doesn't. And then from there, we start a memory program, if you will. But if you'd like more on that, I'd love to come back and talk a little bit more about that. Thank you. Yes, sorry.
Go ahead, Lee.
I just had a statement and a quick question. I've been on the board long enough to know that you've said over and over again, without cancer care, orthopedics, and cardiac care, you can't really have a long-term viable hospital. So adding
Correct.
all of these services is great.
Right.
The addition of the Dr. Kirshner and actually having cardiac caths here, how long do you see that? And I should know this, until that's really coming to fruition locally. You're not doing them now, but I mean, that's the goal.
Oh. So we're all family, right? So I can speak like I'm in the living room. My greatest fear is Dr. Gotteshaller announced his retirement. My heart fell into my stomach. With all due respect, that guy is cardiology, cardiac care to Auburn and Mark Baker and Agnew. So when you have a giant like that stepping down, who's going to step up? So the hospital ended up stepping up. We already spent $4 million. If you guys ever come to the hospital, I had 10,000 square feet of 2 wings that were for administrative. So when I bought the county nursing home, I moved all the finance people out there, all the HR people out there, and that created 10,000 square feet on the 3rd floor. Beautiful, beautiful offices. And then I went about hiring, like we said, we had Dr. Sharma and Emily Wilson, and then I hired Pravina, and then I hired Doria. So we now have, I always said it was going to take 3 full-time cardiologists to replace Dr. Gotteshaller. I have 3 board-certified, fellowship-trained cardiologists, and I'm trying to transition that program. We're open for business now. Like as we speak, anyone in this room would like to see a cardiologist, you're at the hospital. All you got to do is call our cardiology number and you can get in to see a cardiologist tomorrow. Now, if those of you that are dealing with cardiologists, it ain't that easy. There's no room. If you're trying to get in to see a cardiologist in the old days, last year, very, very difficult. And if you try to go to a cardiologist in Syracuse, it's a 6-month wait. We're now sitting on 3 doctors and a mid-level that are ready to see you tomorrow with all the latest technology and equipment all at the hospital. So we're open for business now. We did that deliberately. The building that we're talking about, that's going to be 3 years. It'll take me a year to plan it. It'll take me a year to get it through all the state, and it'll take me a year to build. But the cardiac catheterization program, we're supposed to be on the November docket for approval. I just didn't have my act together, so I'll be on the January docket for approval. We could be doing cardiac catheterization by the spring.
Anybody got anything? I just want one more comment. Can you tell the whole crew here and on Zoom, our relationship with Upstate that really started a long time ago, but certainly during COVID, we took their overflow.
Oh, yeah, absolutely. That was interesting. We, some specialties are very hard to recruit for a small hospital, urology, colorectal surgery, to name a few. And so I started partnering with Upstate because they're big. They got like 19 urologists. I couldn't recruit one. And so they started recruiting for me. And my partnership is they hire the doctor and then they lease or rent the physician full-time to me. And it's a win-win situation because I do everything that I can do locally. But those like big cases, the things that are at an academic medical center, they're all being done, you know, at Upstate. During COVID was very interesting. I thought you guys are gonna have a lot more COVID-related questions. Not that we're heading that way again, but we're heading that way again. I was really surprised when who could prepare for COVID? Nobody. Pandemic, nobody. I was particularly surprised when all the public health systems weren't enough, and all the hospitals were leaned on, you know, heavily to do a lot of that lifting. During that time, we were one of the only hospitals that fared exceptionally well because I've been adding doctors for 20 years. So when all of this hit, we didn't need anybody. We had an emergency room. We had COVID response. I had pulmonology. I had infection control. I had every specialty known to man. We're truly a full service hospital. We took care of Auburn and Cayuga County exceptionally well. We had 17 ventilators because we saw it coming and we ordered them ahead of time. We had Auburn and Cayuga covered because what we found is that the large institutions really shut down. And then the time came where everybody sends everything to Upstate. You know, all like 35 hospitals, everybody sends everything to Upstate. Upstate got overwhelmed and they didn't have any more room. And they asked all of us area hospitals to help them. They asked us to take back the COVID patients that we sent to them. Their argument was, we're an academic medical center. We take care of the sickest of the sick. Well, after a 5-day stay, you might be stable, but you had to stay in the hospital for 10 days until you got 2 negative COVID tests. So Upstate asked all of us hospitals, hey, they don't need an acute care stay. Can you take them back? Well, the finance guys were jumping through the roof because we can take them back, but there's no reimbursement. But it really was a time for us to say, are we part of a larger community? Are we part of a regional approach? We determined, this administration determined that we were part of a regional approach. And if Upstate needed our help and they needed us to take 10 of their patients, and I realized, you know, that was controversial because folks were like, well, we might need those beds. The way I was thinking about it is, you know, I'll line them up in the hallway and Tammy will get a couple more nurses. We're going to figure out how to take care of them because it was more important to me that Upstate had 10 high-end academic beds to take care of the sickest of the sick. And I was one of the only hospitals that did that. And Upstate was very upset at all the other hospitals that did not do that. Well, in 3 to 6 months, the legislature passed legislation called load balancing and rebalancing, right? And Tammy knows all about that. So because all the other hospitals did not respond in a way, we're now legislated every single day to send to the state, what's my bed count? How many beds do I have? How many beds are open? How many beds are this? How many beds are that? Because they want to make sure if there's another pandemic or anything, that they're not going to ask these other hospitals, would you take something off Upstate? They're going to tell them they got to do it. So we ended up doing the right thing without being legislated and regulated to do it. And Upstate has been a great partner for us. And now they're partnering with us in cancer care. I mean, it's their name and our name. So that was a tough question, and the board backed me up on that. I had to answer a lot of questions, but I just think it falls into the category of once in a man's life, you have the opportunity to do the right thing. It might not be the popular thing, but it's the right thing. And you guys should be very proud when we got called to that question. I think we did the right thing for Cayuga County and for upstate in general. So thank you for that.
Anything else? Comments, questions for Scott or Tammy or Matt? I want to thank you very much. I mean, this is the first time that I know of that you've done a presentation like this in front of the ledge. And the
Sure,
media is listening in, so they certainly heard it.
sure.
So we really appreciate it. Everybody should be very proud of this hospital.
Yeah, we're our honor to serve. Thank you very much.
I know you saved my life a couple of times and I'll never forget it.
Yeah, well, you're
Like a cat,
on the
yeah.
limit, so knock it off.
3 on your own. Thank you so much. Thanks. You're welcome to leave or stay. It's up to you. That's why I wanted to put you
Yeah,
out
okay,
first.
yeah, thank you.
I know you're busy.
Yeah.
Next presentation is one of our own. Christina's got, I think, a very interesting presentation about Operation Solar Lanterns. It's
Thank you.
thanks again. guys.
See you later.
Thanks so
bye.
much.
Thank
See you in the morning.
Yeah,
Got a
yeah.
meeting in the morning. This will be interesting. You really got to listen to this. It's fun.
So Hans, I'll promise we'll keep it short for your birthday, but we wanted to share a little bit about what we did this summer and the trip that we took and the work that we did in Kenya prior to Dave giving us the proclamation, because we wanted you all to understand what took place. Oops, I used it too fast. I'll let Victoria give, this is my sister, by the way, Victoria. I will let her give a little bit of the background because this really began with her and Ann Malad, and I joined in a little bit later.
So Ann Malad, who was my mentor and librarian at the Auburn Large City School District, she taught me that it's important to think globally when we teach our kids, and that it's important to show them that there's a big world that they can make changes to, and we want to empower our kids. So we all started this project to do a solar lantern build and learn about solar energy and learn about how we can solve problems in other countries where light is not something that they have access to easily. So we had this grand plan. We're going to bring in this organization called Engineering Brightness. They were going to work with our kids. We were going to send lanterns to Liberia. It was going to be awesome, but then COVID happened and we couldn't do it. So we had raised a significant amount of money. Donors like Nucor and Xylem and the Rotary and all sorts of people, they donated money to this project. And a few years later, we met a woman from Kenya at another library conference, and she was explaining to us some of the issues her kids had. And we thought, finally, we have a project that we can do with all this funding that we have. So that's how it all kind of came to be. We met a woman in South Carolina. She's from Kenya. She has students who needed lights to read their books at home, and they needed books to read.
So we took advantage of that and decided that we were going to turn this into really a grand adventure. There was 5 of us who traveled, myself, Victoria, and then Jess Kearns, who was a former Auburn Auburn elementary school teacher, and her husband. She had moved to Arkansas, but still became part of stayed in and helped with this project.
So Margaret is the one that we met. She is a retired librarian in Kenya. She is also the president of the Rift Valley Reading Association, and that association works to bring youth who come from very humble beginnings and get them to go to school. That's really her main objective: get them to school, get them reading, get them to love to learn. And she is also working on building a library for the community.
We tried to Zoom in with Margaret and have her here with us tonight, but it's 1 a.m. in Kenya right now, so it was kind of a big ask. So before we got to Kenya, we did, like I said, you don't travel halfway around the world and not try to see a little bit while you're there. So we made a stop in Cairo for 3 days before we went. And then on our way back home, myself, Victoria, and Anne, we stopped in Amsterdam for 3 days. So to try to break up the trip a little bit. Anybody who's been on a 15 to 20 hour flight knows that those are pretty torturous. So if you can break it up, you do. So when we got to Kenya, we did travel a little bit so we could see some more than just doing this. So we were gone a total of 3 weeks. So we were away from home for quite a bit. So we went to Amboseli, which is their large national park, and we saw animals everywhere. It was really astounding. We just left the facility and the elephants were there. The only thing we didn't see was a cheetah. So I was a little disappointed, but we saw everything else. And we got to visit a Maasai village and actually visit one of their schools while we were there too. So it was really interesting to see how they still held on to their nomadic and rural traditions. Just some more pictures. We just thought, who doesn't want to see elephants? I mean, it was really amazing to wake up to this every day.
So this is the library that they currently have that Margaret started. They do have a certified librarian that runs the facility, which is fantastic. And as you can see, it's inviting, like you want to go there, it's colorful, it's fun. But the problem is that the building is falling apart. It is termite infested. They are constantly patching the building. So we brought all those books that the Rotary had donated, and they have no place to really keep them safe and keep them accessible to the community.
To give you an idea of how bad the termites are, you might notice what looks like dirt and dust on the floor there. That's because they go in every day and they have to completely sweep the floors because of all the dust the termites have created. So this is definitely not structurally sound at this point. While we were there, we also got to meet with some of the heads of their government. We met with the Minister of Education, and in this picture, we also got to meet with the head of their county. Kenya is smaller, and so they're broken up into counties, not states. So this is really an opportunity to meet with some higher level officials and try to show them that we're in it for the long haul. And if they were to build a new library for this area, that we would help and we would ask help from the Rotary again to make sure that there were books in this library for them. And by the time we were done with that meeting, they were really impressed by what we brought with us and what we were doing. And he showed us the site that they said they were going to build the library on. So this was right behind their government buildings in Joro, which was the area of Kenya we were traveling. Go ahead.
So it was really amazing meeting all of the students. We visited 16 schools, and at each school they had mentors from the local university that would come and work with the students to help prepare them for their futures. So meeting with the teachers and mentors and students, they were also welcoming and kind and generous. It was incredible.
It was really life-changing to be with these kids and see really truly how humble their background was. How happy they were to be in school. They were delighted to see us. They were so excited to just have visitors. So you would never know from the joy that was on their faces, really what their struggles in life were. And some of it is really, really very difficult. I think we all see poverty here, and of course it exists, but the slums that are there are beyond description that I have the ability to kind of put out there.
And you can see one of those pictures on the left, that is one of their school libraries. So it's not like what our school libraries look like. At each school, we met with the different clubs. We met with boys clubs and girl clubs. At each club received 5 lanterns. We were able to bring a total of 150 with us. We raised enough for that. And the rest were going to be given during the school year because this was still kind of summertime for them.
These lanterns are really amazing too. For that they charge for full 8 hours, they would get a full 8 hours of light from these lanterns. So they're quite efficient. And we carried them with us. They were packed into our suitcases. Everything we brought, we packed in there. The books we purchased in Kenya, but we packed them all in. It made getting through customs interesting at times.
So of course, our students here in the county and in Auburn needed to be a part of this project. So we had learned about it during library and the school day, but then we had an evening program at BTW where students were able to learn more about solar energy. They were able to actually build their own solar lanterns. So not the ones that we sent, but they built their own backyard version. And then we did a bookmark exchange as well. So our students created little bookmarks that said, like, what's your favorite food? And at the bottom, it was what problem do they want to solve in the world? And it was really fascinating for our kids to have a kind of a hard time coming up with a problem that they really wanted to solve, where the students in Kenya, they had a lot of problems that they were eager and ready to start working on. So that was very interesting.
And those, we also allowed some of the kids in Kenya to make bookmarks too. So we brought those bookmarks back and they're going to be distributed to the students here in Auburn. Again, those are pictures of some of the kids who worked on it. We're also incredibly impressed with the penmanship of the students there. As a school teacher, I was really impressed with the penmanship of these students, but they were so much younger than the kids that I teach, and you could read everything. It's better than most adults' handwriting, yes. Again, some more pictures. You can see their smiles were just, illuminating. And even the kids that we weren't working with, they couldn't wait to see us. They wanted to touch us. They wanted to be close to us. They just really wanted to feel like they were a part of this day. And we did get to do some other fun stuff while in Kenya. We visited an artist. I don't want to call it, what's the word?
Like a residency.
Yes, thank you.
So at this residency, the artists are all from Kenya, and their main objective is to make it environmentally sustainable, their artwork. So they focused a lot on plastic pollution and other issues that are in that community.
And this isn't a real castle. This doctor built this castle about 10 years ago because he dreamed of living in a castle one day. And so he decided to build one in his own community. Margaret promised us a leisurely drive to get there. It took 2.5 hours, and there's no drives in Kenya that are leisurely. We did get to see the equator. And again, we tried to really stop by and see a lot of different things. The highlight of the trip was definitely the books. So I'll let Victoria talk more about those.
Yes, so it was one of the best experiences as a librarian to show up to a place with books and the kids just immediately dive in. They were so excited to read and look at all the books. It was really, really nice. But I want to mention about the books. We didn't purchase them here in the States. We bought them in Kenya. And the content of the books was very, very different than the content that we put in our schools. We'll talk more about what some of those topics were in a moment, but it's important that kids see themselves in the books that they're reading. It is important that they have a diverse collection of books that they're reading, because we don't know what all the experiences are, and they don't know what all the experiences are. But if they only get Snow White and the Seven Dwarfs, like that's not their culture, that's not their life. So they need something that's representative of them.
So again, we just took some pictures, the kids being so excited. We had some stickers from the Rotary Club, so we were able to put stickers in there so that whenever they're taken out of the library, they'll know where they came from. While we were also at the schools, there is an initiative to plant, I think it was 8 billion.
Those billion.
Billion? Okay, 8 billion trees in Kenya over the course of the next, I believe it was 5 years was the goal. So we planted trees at every school we went to, so we contributed a little bit. We planted a total of 80 trees by the time we were done. We promised them we'd come back in 3 years to eat the avocado that would finally be producing.
The boys clubs that we met, they are actually having a little bit of a harder time than the girl clubs that we met. The boys clubs have all lost their funding. So now to get the support, they have started their own entrepreneurial ventures. They've planted the avocado trees, and now they're trying to sell their avocados. So the kids want to do these programs. They want to be there, they want to learn, but it's just access.
Another part of this trip, which was really near and dear to my heart, was the help I got from the Auburn High School Z Club, which is part of the Zonta. The students, when we had talked, we were told often that the girls don't go to school when they are menstruating because it is seen as shameful and dirty in their culture. And so they're told to stay home, or they don't have the means to kind of take care of themselves. So the Z Club, I mentioned this in my bioethics class, and a couple of the kids were in the Z Club, and they immediately went back to Mrs. Lachone and said, this is a problem, how can we help? And they did a fundraiser, and through Reuse Refuge, I was able to buy 80 reusable feminine hygiene napkins so that these girls can attend school and not have that as a detriment to them being able to go to school. The other thing I'll point out, and we won't dwell on, but Victoria had mentioned some of the difficult conversations. Culture is different there, and what is accepted and what still takes place is stuff that we don't see, thankfully, here in the United States, or at least not very often. So when we looked at the posters these girls were creating and the issues they said they wanted to solve, they involved being married off as children, still doing female circumcisions, things like that. So it was really, it affected me to see like 10-year-olds having to talk about this. But because this is the lives that they live, that's why they needed books that were about their lives. They needed to know that they weren't alone.
And it was the young kids too. They were picture books. They were not.
Yeah.
So moving forward, the library that's being built is fantastic. It's wonderful. But like we said, the drives are not awesome and wonderful. The roads are tough, and the library actually serves 200,000 people, even though it's very, very small. and it's very rural, so everything is very far apart. So to actually get to the library for some of the community members is impossible. So we would love to, in the future, maybe partner with Margaret again and purchase a bookmobile or something of that nature so that the librarian can travel to the schools instead and bring the books to the kids instead of the kids having to get to the books.
So y'all be hearing from us soon when we start our fundraising for that. And we did include a link to our blog. We did blog every day that we were on our trip, every day that we could. We didn't always have internet access, so that Victoria's students and my students can see what we're doing. We answered their questions daily if they asked them. And we also shared a link to some of the videos and some of the songs that the kids performed for us while we were there. So it was just really an uplifting time. And we just wanted to share this with you and see that people in this community, I just benefited that I got to tag along and be a part of it, that other people in this community, like my sister and Amelon and the Rotary Club, are doing really great things, and we should acknowledge those things. Thank you. Any questions? Yes.
So the lanterns, when they're fully charged, they'll last 8 hours.
Yes.
Are the schools, I mean, how do they charge them?
They're solar lanterns, so they just put them out in the sun and it will charge
It
us.
takes 8 hours to charge.
So is the school outdoors? I mean, if they're being in school during the day, that's what I was curious about.
So they would ideally be charging it at home so that like on their windowsill or something like that, so that when they came home from school, they'd have light to be able to read by at night.
Any
Anything
other
else?
questions? Any other comments or questions?
Thank you so much for your time, you guys. I know
Thank
these are
you.
long nights, so I really appreciate it.
I've got a proclamation that I'll do. Yes, we gotta realize how lucky we are when we have a down day or a bad day. We just gotta look at those slides, that's for sure. Okay, I will read this proclamation. Whereas in our society, it is an important civic responsibility and a great honor for any governmental body to grant public recognition, admiration, and gratitude to these very citizens who have helped to build this community and influence the future of its citizens. And whereas Victoria Clarko, Ann McLeod, Christina Clarko, and Jessica Rice Kearns embarked on a journey to distribute solar lanterns to students in Naijoro, Kenya. In the year 2022-23 school year, Genesee students were learning about Kenya, what light poverty means, and all about solar energy. And whereas in October, Washington Community Center hosted a family night where students raised money for solar lanterns and for books that were purchased in Nairobi, Kenya. And whereas on June 23rd, 2023, the group set off on their adventure to deliver the solar lanterns to Kenya. And whereas in Kenya, they visited public schools and handed out the solar-powered disc lamps to 5 students at each school. The students they met were with our members of the lit clubs, that's for boys, or the glow clubs for girls, started by their host, Margaret Muthika. How do you pronounce it?
Muthiga, yep.
Yeah, it was close. President of Rift Valley Reading Association. There are 15 students in each club. Students are selected based on academic promise and economic need. At the end of each visit, they were invited to plant a tree on school grounds. And whereas the Auburn Rotary Club donated money so books could be purchased for the students and the library. Over 100 books were able to be purchased with this donation. The Auburn High School Z Club and Refuse Refuge donations were utilized to present 15 girls with reusable menstrual pads. And whereas the whole operation would not have been possible without the support of organizations like NICECAT, Nucor, Auburn Education Foundation, Xylem, Auburn Rotary Club, Genesee Parent Teachers Partnership, Auburn Large School District, Reuse Refuge, Booker T. Washington Community Center, Marcia Finch, and the Z Club. Now therefore be I resolved. David S. Gould, Chairman of the Cayuga County Legislature, and fellow legislators do proclaim our gratitude to all who made this operation possible and proclaim September 26, 2023 Operation Solar Lanterns Day with appropriate civic, community, and activities embracing the past as well as the future that only unity, respect, and appreciation can bring. Christina, this is for you and your whole group. Thanks.
Thank you for everything. And we have a representative from the Rotary here, so I just want everybody to know.
That's all right.
Thanks. Really appreciate it, Christina. That was, I feel that was a great presentation.
Thank you.
You know, your dedication to humanity is great.
Thank you.
It's well appreciated.
With blush.
Okay, Sheriff Brian Skank is up next.
Brian, actually.
Brian's got a presentation. I think everybody knew that he was going to go over some things today, so welcome, Sheriff.
Thank you for giving me the opportunity to present tonight. I don't know how I'm going to follow those two presentations and talk about the jail. That's going to be a little. But I'll do my best.
Good luck.
I'll do my best to make this exciting and positive, but that's going to be a challenge. I wanted to just present a little bit of information to you tonight relative to some challenges we're facing in the jail. And I know that Amanda sent out some information prior. I know she sent this packet out, this 3-page packet that has some graphs and some information about population trends in the jail, mileage that we've had to travel, transports and that type of thing. I just wanted to go over some of that information tonight because if you just look at that, it may not make sense, but many of the graphs that I'm going to cover, and I'll do this as quickly as I can because I want to respect your time tonight, are in that other slide. So I'd like to go through that, but are we?
Yeah, just gotta pull it back up.
I think it's important to understand. I know I've come before the Public Safety Committee and Ways and Means last week and spoke a little bit about the challenges we've had with population and generating revenue that we have typically in the past. I just want to give a little bit of insight as to how things are changing in the jail and why, so you have a better understanding as we move forward. So I think we're going to continue to see some challenges. On the first slide, you'll see there's admissions and discharges over a period of time from 2009 to 2023. The figures for 2023 are projected out to the end of the year. Obviously, those aren't actual numbers, but we're projecting that's where we're going to be. In the admissions graph on the left side, you'll see a red line at the bottom that trends up. That shows cap court admissions. So in 2020, we implemented cap court, as everybody knows. That line shows the number of cap court detainees that have been detained at the jail. And those numbers are included in the total. They're not in addition to the total number of admissions. Those are included in those totals. You'll see at the bottom the actual numbers of cap court arraignments. So that's pretty significantly changed the dynamic of our jail over the last few years. 2020, you see the drop off in admissions due to a number of reasons. Obviously, bail reform that took effect in early 2020. COVID, we just kind of saw everything just shut right down in our jail included. We didn't see admissions and discharges. Everything was pretty much locked down during that time. Just forward. Can you do it for me?
I can.
Can't get
Oh.
to
I might have switched off a little side from red to green.
That's okay if Amanda will do it for me.
Gotcha.
So that slide is self-explanatory. That's just the average length of inmate stay. It's kind of interesting that from 2009 through 2023, the numbers are somewhat consistent, even though the numbers of admissions and discharges have changed. If you can go to the next slide. These graphs just basically show the percentage of change year over year. So again, you'll see the steep number or steep decline in admissions in 2020, steep decline in discharges just because we weren't seeing the traffic coming in and out of the jail as we had in previous years. Go ahead. Amanda.
No, it doesn't want to do it for me either.
Oh, thanks, Brian.
It froze.
Are we done?
Oh, boy.
Can I ask you a question? Cap admissions, the centralized arraignment program admissions, are those admissions to the jail or you're holding them there? I'm always confused about that.
So it is very confusing. So the admissions that are plotted on that red line, those are actual detainees that came into our jail and were detained. They may have been detained for a few hours before cap and released, but they still show that they were detained. What that number doesn't include are arraignments that are walked in by the respective police agency. So if our sheriff's office or the Auburn Police Department or the state police walk in somebody at 7 p.m. or 7 a.m. and we don't actually detain them prior, they are not included in that number. But if they are detained into the jail after that, if the judge puts them in jail, then they would be part of those numbers.
But the ones that are your responsibility while they're waiting to be arraigned, and they're considered admitted inmates or
For the
kind
pur-
of hanging there
Sure, for the purposes of the graph and the admissions number, they would be counted.
as admitted inmates.
Yes, even
Okay.
if they're released at the cap arraignment, if they're released, they would still be counted. So they're part of that red line.
I don't know where he
It's
is.
part of the actual total admissions.
I got a question for you too, then while we're waiting. On that graph that showed the average time people stay, it was like between 44 and 50 something. Is that before they, like they're held before they go to trial, or or does that count people who are also, because aren't some people just put in like the county jail for 30 days and then released as a sentence?
So that is the average length of stay for anybody that's detained in our facility. So that's the average of whatever time. Someone may be there a week, someone may be there 365 days. It's the average of the entire population that's detained in our facility for that time frame.
For every reason.
Correct. Yeah. I can kind of explain a little bit here without the slides. One of the main things that I wanted to explain tonight that has really challenged us over the last few years are certainly, the criminal justice reforms and COVID, but we have a 214 bed facility. Back before the HALT Act, if we had a disciplinary issue with a particular inmate, we could hold them in a particular cell, let them out for an hour per day, at least for exercise, put them back. We can't do that now. Even if we have a disciplinary inmate, we have to let them out for at least 7 hours a day. That's really created some challenges for us because now we have to have space within the jail. If we have a problem inmate that needs to be out for 7 hours, we have to have that space where maybe they're by themselves. So that really ties up a lot of area for us. So we have 2 inmates and they can't be around anybody else because of the problems that they create. It might be 2 whole areas of multiple cells that we have to put them in, and now we can't utilize them. So not too many years ago, we could utilize a lot more of our space to hold a lot more people. And I bring that up tonight because there was a time going back, as you'll see in the admission numbers, if you look at the data, where there were quite a few more admissions than we have currently. We could really pack people into our jail. We can't do that. The HALT Act is one factor. The MAT program, that's another factor. OASIS and the state legislature, OASIS has basically said that we have to have the MAT program. It's not just the purchase of the medications and the administration of the medications. We have to have counseling, peer support, an actual whole program that addresses those problems that people face in that community. So that has tied up a whole pod. So that has limited our ability to use any other part of that pod to lock inmates in. So that has limited our ability to pack people in like we did in the past. And I bring this up because our revenue, our board and revenue has really declined. I am going to need one of the slides here at one point, but
Hopefully I'll get it up here in a minute.
it's really declined. But one of the reasons is we can't pack our jail to capacity like was done in years previous because of some of these reforms, some of these changes, some of these programs that we're having to offer in the jail. So it's very challenging. There used to be a time we could bring 210 inmates into the facility and we could manage that and make that work and fill the jail with more board-ins. Now, if we're getting to 175, 180, we're essentially getting full because we have a facility that we have, minimum, medium, and maximum security type inmates. We have males and we have females. We have many inmates that have keep aparts, which means they might have orders of protection. They can't be near each other, or maybe they're witnesses, both involved in the same case. We can't put them together. We need extra space to be able to move people around. There we go.
Got it.
Back up. You go back. Am I doing it?
Yeah, you're kind of dueling there.
There we go. All right. So, yeah, so we need that space to be able to move inmates around. If we have a fight in an area and we need to separate those inmates, we need places to put them. If we have an inmate that comes in that's struggling with a severe mental health issue and can't be around other inmates, we need space to put them somewhere. So we have to have areas within our jail open, and especially with the HALT Act now. Right now, we have 12 disciplinary inmates that are basically discipline issues that have to be in their own separate areas. Sometimes we can put them together. We might be able to put two of them together if they can get along, but if it's an inmate that's causing a lot of issue, then we might have to put them by themselves, and it ties up a whole area. So it's been very challenging since the HALT Act and over the last few years to really, utilize as much space as we used to. And I put these two slides together to kind of show you above the top. The top graph is our federal admissions from 2009 to 2022. You'll see that they have steadily declined until 2020, when we saw a sharp decline due to, we didn't have a lot of movement due to COVID. It's a little bit deceiving, and that's what I wanted to explain to you. Although the admissions show a low number, we did have an average population count in 2020 of federal inmates we still had 40. It just meant that they weren't coming and going. We had 40 that were there a much longer time. But we have seen a decline in the revenue for a number of reasons. The biggest impact that we have now is, again, the space in the jail, the ability to utilize all of that space. So moving forward, I'm going to skip ahead here a little bit before I get into the miles traveled. This is a little tough to see unless you're right next to the screen, but every day we submit a report to the State Commission of Corrections. And I just put two reports together side by side to kind of show what's changed within our facility between May of 2019 and May of 2023. On the left-hand side, and you can't read it if you're not close to it, but on the left-hand side is a report from May of 2019 or May 29th. It showed at that particular time that we had 174 individuals in our jail. Out of those 174, we had 44 federal boarded inmates, and we had 25 inmates from Cortland County that were boarded in from Cortland. So all of those inmates were generating revenue for our community. 69 inmates out of the 174 were board-ins. On the right-hand side, we've seen a major shift for a number of reasons, I believe. We've seen a major shift in the fact that on the right-hand side, we have May of 2023, May 30th, we have 180 inmates at that time. We only have 24 federal inmates, and we actually have just 2 boarded in locally. So we have 26 inmates in May at that time that were generating revenue. So now we've seen a huge shift to where we have even a few more inmates than we did in May of 2019. But we've lost all of those board-ins. We don't have the space to bring the board-ins in because of this. So I just bring this to your attention because it's a significant increase in the number of inmates that we're holding that are from our local community facing local charges or sentenced to local time. And as you know from the resolution you're going to address tonight, it's having a huge impact on our local budget and our ability to generate revenue. So I would love to say that I think that number is going to drop back to where it was, but I'm concerned that it's not. I also had Amanda send you a current population count of who we have in our facility now and what charges they're facing with the names redacted. But you'll see there's a number of, what's really concerning to me, there's 46 individuals that are committed currently that are facing charges for criminal contempt or aggravated family offense for domestic type cases that are our own local people. So that's really concerning because that number is just spiked out of sight. And I'm not really sure, I haven't dove into that data to know why that is. I'm a little concerned with bail reform, that orders of protection are being issued at arraignment. People are leaving instead of coming to jail and cooling off for a few days, and they're going out and immediately violating those orders. I hope I can dive into that a little bit. I can't stand here and say that's for certain, but I think those things are having an impact on the numbers we're seeing locally. So a very significant shift in the number of local inmates and the lack of space to be able to board in outside inmates for revenue. And just real quickly, so I know I'm getting late here. The other graphs are pretty self-explanatory. They have to do with transportation within the jail. This is another area that we've seen a huge spike, and it's creating some serious challenges for us. But you'll see we have data from 2020 to 2023, and that's projected out. 2023 is just data to the end of July. So we've already surpassed our number of individuals that we've transported from last year into 2023 already through the end of July for such reasons as just court, medical appointments, federal inmates going back and forth to federal court or to their medical appointments. One of the biggest concerns that I have is we're seeing a lot of miles traveled for juvenile transports because we're going way downstate because there are no beds locally when we need to house a juvenile. And it's really impacted not only our jail transport teams, but our road patrol division and having to pick up the slack. We've had to have patrol deputies drive down to New York City with a juvenile just to put them down there for a day or two and bring them right back because we have no local beds. But I just bring this to you because there's a lot of challenges that we're dealing with relative to that. It's impacting our ability to be proactive in the community when we have our road patrol deputies tied up with those types of transports. And there's some problems that I think, really need to be addressed at a higher level. And I think we need to be talking to our state representatives about these things and pushing them to fix some of these things. But I just wanted to bring that to you because I do come to you month after month at public safety and talk about the challenges. I wanted to provide some information, to show the trends and where we're heading. I'm happy, certainly to answer questions tonight, but I don't want to take up any more of your time. Happy to talk about this or get any other data you'd like to see relative to these issues, but these are problems that are going to continue to seriously impact our budget and public safety in our community.
For the federal miles moving fed, do you get reimbursed for that?
We do. So any of the board-ins, we get reimbursed for the mileage, for medication, for medical costs. So anytime we have a board-in and, we're good there, we get reimbursed for all of that. But since we've seen that shift and we don't have as many, we're bearing the cost for all of that. And it's really seriously impacting our budget.
Chris? Two questions, I'll make them quick. With the 7 hours, first one, the 7 hours, does that include, are they still required due to the HALT Act? I think I know the answer to this, but with the HALT Act, if there's assaults on staff or assaults on other inmates or incarcerated individuals, are they still required to get their 7 hours?
So there are circumstances where they can be locked in longer, but it's very difficult and it's very limited on when you can do that. So ultimately, they won't be locked down very long for the whole period or the whole day when they're in. They're going to be out amongst the population and we have to allow them out at some point. So it's really created some challenges. But I think it's very important for everybody to know that you have this vision sometimes of what you see on television is the reality of what we deal with. We're not putting people in a dark room with no light, with no sound for a month at a time. That's not what it looks like. They go into a cell, they have light, they have sound, they have medical and mental health treatment. These are disciplinary issues. And unfortunately, we've lost the ability to utilize that as a disciplinary thing in jail. So it's kind of tied our hands because there's no accountability for some folks that want to assault staff or assault other inmates or cause those types of issues. But it's really impacted our ability. Instead of if we have a 4 cell block area and we want to utilize all 4 cells, if we have to put a disciplinary inmate into that 4 block area, we may have to leave that individual in there alone because we can't put that individual with others. So we have to let them out into the common area for 7 hours, and we can't have the overlap with other inmates in there. So now we've taken 4 potential cells to utilize for folks, and we can't use 3 of them because we have to leave that common area open for that 1 disciplinary inmate.
Just one, and then thank you for that. And just one follow-up or another question regarding utilizing road patrol deputies. I'm hoping in a way, but because it's not necessarily a good thing financially, but public safety is always our first priority. Utilizing overtime deputies, right? You're not pulling from the deputies that are patrolling on shift to send to do transports, correct?
we do our best, but at times we don't have a choice. So we might have 3 deputies on the road and a supervisor, and we may have no choice but to send 2 deputies that are on the road on that transport if we don't have somebody. If it overlaps another shift, we might hold somebody over or hold 2 people over if we have to, but that's not always a luxury that we have if people are already out of service and we can't get somebody back. But we do our best to make sure, you know, at least 3 cars on the road, but that's very challenging when these things pop up.
So I would just add, you know, from my own perspective, that is a direct causal relationship between that and public safety. We're sparse on the patrolling, we've got a county that's 75 miles north and south. This represents a clear and present danger to our citizens.
Yeah, and I will add too, just one more thing, the juveniles, very, very concerning and disturbing that there are times when we can't find a bed at all. We have had a few times over the last year where we've had to put a juvenile into one of our interview rooms because we can't put them into the jail. But we'll have to sit on a juvenile in one of our interview rooms on a cot, just leave them on the floor on a cot until we can find a bed. That's gone on as long as 2 days straight because we can't find a bed and we're still struggling with that. The state's got to help communities address this issue because it's really having some negative impacts on our ability to do our jobs. But I bring that to you. I think it's very important for you to know why we're seeing these challenges and why I'm coming every month and saying that we're full. I just want you to have a real good understanding of what's impacting our ability to generate that revenue. So,
Elaine?
Just a quick question. The juveniles that you transport, are those all directed to you from the court?
yes.
So the court calls, you have a juvenile that's there, the judge wants the juvenile put in some kind of detention and that you're the answer.
Sure, or some type of, whether it's non-secure or secure detention, we have to provide that ride for that placement. And when we can, we utilize jail staff, jail transport teams. But being that we've been short or we're so busy traveling so many miles with other things that we have to utilize road patrol deputies to do it. We're taking them off the street.
So when the court calls, you need to stop.
We have to. And sometimes they place those individuals into our custody and there's no bed. We have to take custody of them. And here's another gray area that drives me crazy. The custody they're placed in our custody, but there's no bed available. So now we have to figure out how to address that. And they sleep in one of our interview rooms while we try to find a bed somewhere throughout New York State. Then we might be driving to New York City just to go down and get them the next day for court.
So the court's not making any placement decisions. They're just giving the.
So DSS and the court will try to help us. But if, these things often happen at the end of the day, everybody goes home, there's no bed available. We take custody of them and then we're stuck with them. So it's happened enough times that it's one time's not acceptable, let alone another times we've had to do that. But I think we need some help from our state reps and some pressure to fix some of these things because it's not good for the juveniles sleeping on the floor. And it's not good for our community to have our, deputies sitting watching this juvenile. So, but.
Right, are we still, when I was out there, we got $100 a day for the feds and 90 for the ordinance. Has that gone up?
No, the feds are still 100. I have watched that. Some counties are getting a little less than that, I think, but it's still pretty much the same across the board.
Okay.
But they do pay for the mileage. They pay for our, salaries for anybody that's transporting them during that time, all of the prescription costs and everything. So it certainly is very helpful. In 2019, we were having an average daily count of about 45 feds and, any local inmates from other jails were, it was just extra revenue on top of it, but we just don't have the space or ability to plug them in like we did. I think today we're at 17. We can consistently hold about 20 currently if nothing changes, but it's going to have some significant impacts on our budget moving forward.
I appreciate this.
Thank you.
It took a lot to put this together and thank your staff.
Yeah, and I know I went through fast, but just please reach out to me if you want more information about it.
Bobby, who's got it? Andy or who? Trish?
Yeah, I was just gonna ask, and I can reach out to you for more discussion on this, but I seem to recall us passing a resolution to be in favor of repealing the whole act a while back.
You did.
That's when it first came on. Mark did that.
Yeah, And I'm just curious, are there other things, you said engaging our state reps is paramount for making changes, but are there specific things that you're proposing? Rolling back certain things or total repeal of HALT Act, or I'd just be curious what, if there's any more.
I would love to have a conversation because there's quite a few things I'd
Yeah.
like to see tweaked. Certainly, I think one of the most unacceptable things is to have juveniles sleeping on the floor in one of our interview rooms. We've got to make some beds available and fix that problem. I think that the HALT Act does need to be tweaked. We're not sticking individuals in a dark, dingy, unlit cell, after they're assaulting staff or causing other disciplinary issues. We need that authority to hold them accountable. So those things need to be tweaked, and there's certainly some things, with other criminal justice reforms that I think we can tweak. And I'm not saying maybe total repeal is not necessary, but I think we all need to come to the table, law enforcement, our prosecutors, our victim advocates, and our elected leaders, and fix some of these things because they're having real impacts. It drives me bonkers still to this day that we have people in our community that are one fix away from dying, getting that one with fentanyl in it. We used to be able to bring them in, hold them on a misdemeanor, get them that life-saving treatment and help that they needed right then and there in our jail. We can't do that anymore. We're sending them right back out on the street to keep using. Drives me bonkers that we can't think of ways to address some of these things, but we can do much better. And our elected leaders have got to, both sides of the aisle, they gotta look at these things and realize that some of these reforms are bad for the very people they're supposed to protect. Drives me nuts.
But the state's helping now. They're gonna give the strips so you can test your drugs before you. Rather than solve the problem.
I don't care what side of the political aisle you're on. I think that we can fix these things, but I think every community in New York State's got to be pushing back and saying, let's come to the table, fix these things, and tweak them and do better because it's having a negative impact.
Pass that message along immediately.
You can tell how upset Brian is with this because this is as soon as he's going to get, it drives you bunker.
You want your language.
Thank you.
Thanks, Sharon.
Thank you.
Just one thing, Amy, go ahead.
I just wanted to let the sheriff know that. So just the time I've been here, how different it is. This report is so different than what we received 8 years ago. Sheriff Gould was in place. And I think I've said it before, the cost of doing business nowadays for your department is just different. And we have to accept that and support what needs to be said. And then your statements were what was I was going to say. We collectively voted to repeal the HALT Act. We are behind you. And then finding out what are those specific particulars and how you want us to organize. If it's through the chairman, we should do that.
I'd love to have a broader
quickly
conversation.
and often.
Thank you.
That's what I'm saying.
I just want to request of not only the legislators, but all the department heads on Zoom and they're here. If any of you would like to go through, and I'm not speaking for the sheriff, he certainly has to get approval, but please go out and take a tour with to that jail. It is something you won't believe. John Max gives great tours. You won't believe this, but there's more square footage out at PSP than there is in this whole county building. That's how big it is out there. You walk down some of those aisles and you never think it's going to end. So please, if you haven't been out there and you would like to see it, is that okay, Sheriff?
Absolutely, Mr. Chair. I think every sitting legislator here tonight's been through. I look around the room. I don't think I'm missing anybody that's been out there since I've been sheriff, but I appreciate you coming out, touring, talking about some of the issues we face, but we always would welcome you back. And some of you have gone out and rode with our road patrol division. We always welcome that too, if you want to go out and see what's going on out in the field. So I appreciate that. Thank you.
Go on a Saturday night. Anything else for the sheriff at all? Comments, questions? All right, Brian, thank you very, very much. Privilege of the floor. Anyone have anything they'd like? Okay, minutes to approve, August 22nd, 2023.
Second.
Basile.
Any discussion? If not, all in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Passed. Communications and announcements. Anybody have anything? We don't. Thank you. CCC report. I was looking for Dr. Duran, but I don't see him on there. Is he? Dr. Duran?
Good evening, everyone. Can you hear me?
Yeah, oh, you are on.
Yeah, I'm here. Can you hear me?
Yep, we can. Go ahead, Mike.
Okay, good to be with you all. So, obviously, we're at the start of the 2023-24 academic year, start of the semester, and it's nice to say that the vibrancy on our Fulton and Auburn campus continues, I think, to restore back to what used to feel like normalcy at one point in time. More of our classes are online, our parking lots are more full, and I think our students are taking a higher percentage of their courses in person again, which is certainly something that we were hoping we would feel this year. I also want to take a moment to acknowledge that joining me tonight is the chair of the board, Tony Franciscelli. Thank you, Tony, for taking the time. And, you know, at this time of year, we're looking at a couple of different things. One, where we are in enrollment of sort of the first few weeks of the semester. And I'm proud to say that we have hit our enrollment target for the fall semester, which is, it's always a positive way to begin our year, because I know as you're working through your budget development process, we've just opened our new fiscal year, and the first benchmark to be on pace for the revenue is to certainly be able to hit our enrollment target, which we have done, and I believe we're slightly up about 1 or 2% for target and slightly down year over year. But what's important for us also at the college, of course, is we are doing a couple of things. We're in the early stages of developing and starting to develop our self-study, which is for our reaccreditation through the Middle States Commission of Higher Education. And that's an important thing that I'll probably reference from time to time. It's a review it's a significant endeavor for the college, and any accredited institution, regionally accredited institution, needs to go through a similar process every several years. And so we're in the process of beginning ours, which our review from a peer group will be held in a couple of years, but it takes that long to create the study. And it really is going to be a great time for the college, the trustees, to come together and reflect upon where we are as an organization as it relates to the standards of excellence and the standards related to accreditation. So stay tuned on that. I'll speak more of that over the time of the next 18 months or so. I'm also proud to say that we are, building our implementation team for the next stages of the college's strategic plan. And on a high level, I just want to mention the things that we're focused on this year are a couple of things. Number one, we're working with our student affairs leads and our faculty and academic affairs on reviewing and revising and revamping our academic advisement system and the way we support students and advise them, and the way that we look to create the co-curricular supports that are in place and leveraging our talent. The second big piece that we're focused on is strengthening our partnerships with our local and regional high schools. And, if you look within our enrollment, you would notice that over 2,000 students within our actual college enrollment are what we call, dual credit or dual credit learners. And they're enrolled in high schools while taking college level classes. And this is a very important phenomenon at the institution, and in a way that we're able to support districts in their goal to enhance and diversify the curricular offerings that exist while students are in high school. So now we're taking the next step, which is of our maturity related to this program, and we're looking to develop and market pathways. And that way, students and families starting as early as 9th grade, if they're making choices to take college level coursework in their respective schools, they'll know how that course can relate to a potential college degree, and how the next courses they choose will ladder up towards a degree, because we want to be able to really show families how they can maximize the value proposition and how the positive momentum that they're able to make, many of them as early as 9th or 10th grade, how it's not just about getting credits that can help them get through high school, but setting that potentially all the way for an associate's degree with us, and then aligning with the right strategic transfer partners that the 4-year pathway is available to us. And I'm hopeful that when we really get to this point a year or two from now, that we're going to have several opportunities in various districts across this region where we're going to be able to show families that if they reach certain milestones by the time they graduate from high school, they would be on pace to do a 1-year opportunity with us at Cayuga and on pace for a 3-year baccalaureate degree with several partners that have been identified. The mapping has been complete and the communication is there for marketing and advisement purposes. So it's an ambitious agenda, but it's one that we know is important for us to take on, and an important place for us is to strengthen our position within the community and align what we do. A big thing that our board of trustees, the administration, our faculty that we're focused on at the college at this point is, we want to make sure that we have alignment with our efforts. Similar to you and similar to other organizations, we might have to shrink in size of our human resource talent and maximize what we have. But what's important is that we're working efficiently and smarter while we're also trying to maintain our mission and achieve our vision. And alignment, simplifying things, but also strengthening it is a big piece of what we're going to do. And the third one, of course, that we're focused on this year, which is also significant, is we're starting back to review our scheduling architecture. And in simple terms for us, it's what do we offer for courses, for programs on each respective campus online, affirm that it's still necessary based on student interest, affirm that students can get in and through as we say they can, and then be able to determine from there, what are our marketing propositions, what are enrollment strategies that we can do. Because in order for me to go out and communicate with a diverse learner, though that's someone who maybe wants to be part-time and someone who only can attend in the evening or only wants to attend online, we need to be able to be very specific about what that roadmap may be. And we want to be able to make sure that when we are working with a prospective student or supporting a current student, that we're delivering on our promise. And now in a post-COVID world or later COVID world, we need to get back to our basics and ensure that just because we've had to shrink our scale of course sizes and course offerings, that we have not created any gaps or barriers for completion for students. And so those three areas in the student affairs and academic planning, that's what we're grounded in our work in this year. We're working collectively and collaboratively together. And I hope to be able to make progress then to be able to take on the next task later on this year that we focus and look ahead. With that, I'd be happy to answer any questions.
Anybody, any questions, comments for Dr. Duran? None? All right, Dr. Duran, we appreciate it. Tony, thank you for joining us tonight. We appreciate that too.
All right, thank you.
Thanks.
Be well.
All right, committee reports and individual legislators reports. Anybody have anything they'd like to talk about? Bobby.
Mr. Chair, just a second. I want to take time to thank Kathy Miller of the program manager for the veterans and Kevin Schwab for their special efforts for the wall that heals that was here. My understanding is the volunteers were here around the clock. And I think it's worthy of a special shout out to them and thank them for their efforts.
Very good. It's required when the wall goes anywhere in the country that it's watched 24 hours a day for safety. So thank you, Bob, for that. Okay, my report will be brief as I usually try to do it. I want to start off by thanking everybody like I always do, our county employees, department heads, certainly my fellow legislators. Again, I can't tell anybody enough how hard these people work every day. If you're in the building, you see it every day, and we really appreciate that. Update for the county office building project that we met several times since our last full ledge meeting. We will be meeting again, I think at least once this week, a couple of times next week with the Bergman Company. And I will keep you abreast of what's going on. We're moving along. There will be some information brought to the full ledge probably within a month. Thank the department heads and Lynn and Shireen certainly for the budget meetings we've been having with the department heads. Everyone has been very understandable and very graceful, and we really appreciate that. We're not done. We have some more to go, but I think we're probably 2/3 done. So thank you, department heads. Thank all the people on the Micron committee. A lot of people aren't kept up to date what's going on with our county Micron committee. It's been very, very successful. So I think it has anyhow. We met with several people yesterday. We had a big one yesterday. And the state was represented here and so was several communities or, organizations from Onondaga County. We appreciate it. We have 4 subcommittees. Steve, I don't believe is here today, but he's in charge of planning. Bobby in charge of energy. Jen, city is in charge of housing, and Kelly's here, training and employment. Appreciate it. They've been meeting at least once a month, sometimes twice a month with their committees. So we'll certainly update you as that goes on too. Please don't forget, October is our student day month, okay? So don't forget it. It's a daytime meeting. I don't want you to, come in at midnight or 7 o'clock, 6:30, 5:30 and think it's gonna be. So it's a daytime meeting. The ones that haven't been at this before, I think it's the best meeting of the year. I think you'll all enjoy it, but just don't forget that starts at 10 o'clock next month, okay? And don't forget, in closing, we have a special meeting on Thursday, 2 days from now. So please, anybody that can make it, we really appreciate you being here, and we'll go into that later. Okay, let's move right on to the resolutions. Hans, Ways and Means?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Ways and Means has 6 resolutions. I'd like to offer the first 4 as a bundle.
Move them.
Second, Mark.
Any discussion on the bundle? Not all those in favor, aye.
Aye.
Number 5, WM5. This was added by me because I believe we're being subjected to a great injustice. We, the honest people, are being forced to pay for what our criminals are screwing up again. So I'd like to offer WM5.
Move it.
Second, Basile. Has everybody had a chance to read that and look it over? Okay, all right, thanks. Okay, all in favor, WM5?
Aye.
Anybody opposed? Thank you. WM6, Hans?
This was changed, the new resolution had one line change, whereas, and basically it says that we do have a budget for 15,000 and we haven't expended the majority of it yet. So we're extending the contract for aid to the purchasing agent.
Move it.
Second.
Okay, did everybody, that was just handed out, as we know, an hour and a half ago. Did everybody have a chance to look that over? Any questions on that? I know it was last minute, but it's needed because of the time. Okay, all in favor, WM6?
Aye.
Anybody opposed? Yes, thank you. Thank you, Hans. Health and Human Services, Elaine.
Yep, Health and Human Services had initially started with 12 resolutions. HH2 was pulled. HH1 -2 through 12 were approved by the Health and Human Services Committee and Ways and Means. So I would offer those up as a bundle unless anyone wants one.
Move it, Petrus.
Second.
Any discussion? If not, all in favor?
Aye.
Anyone opposed? Pass. Thank you, Elaine.
Okay, as you see, unfortunately, I think this is my sense is I talked with Dave about it. It's certainly better than an emergency resolution, but I did go ahead with Dave's permission and add HH13, and that's really authorizing the fill of a full-time staff worker at Community Mental Health Center. The individual is leaving October 6th. There were 3 openings. I do think Lauren told me they did fill the social worker at the jail, which is great. But if we allow this to go through, they'll be able to get on the 2 openings they have at the clinic.
Budget.
And filling of a vacancy.
Move it. Second, Basile. Any discussion? Anybody? I'm sure Elaine can answer any questions. Yeah. Hearing none, all in favor?
Aye.
Anyone opposed? Pass. Thank you, Elaine.
Okay, the other one that was added, it sounds worse than it is. It's OFA to create and fill a junior accountant position. But basically what this is, and y'all have heard Brenda talk about the difficulty she had getting the fiscal staff on OFA filled. The position itself has been vacant since I think January. They did have a part-time person helping to keep things afloat, but what this is authorizing the Director of the Office for Aging to create and fill 1 junior accountant position in the Office for the Aging instead of the fiscal officer 1. So we all remember that they attempted to be creative. They classified a fiscal officer 1, thinking that they'd be able to attract someone to fill the fiscal position at OFA. But lo and behold, they do have a junior accountant that they went ahead with Diane's encouragement and interviewed. The fiscal officer 1 is a grade 19. The junior accountant is a grade 19. All this is to give her permission to switch out the fiscal officer 1 and finally fill the fiscal job at OFA with a junior accountant. They're both grade 19s in CSEA. And she'd like to do it sooner than later, since it's been vacant for so long.
Move it for
Thank you.
second.
Thank you.
Okay, any discussion?
Just, so we're not adding, we're just,
She's amending her original resolution to allow her to fill the fiscal officer one position, amending it to read a junior accountant.
we're doing the name swap thing again.
We are.
I love it.
Go ahead, Mark.
Does it change years down the road? In other words,
Nope. Well,
it'll always stay a 19.
Yep. The Director of the Office for the Aging is authorized to fill the junior accountant grade 19 CSEA bargaining unit. And then they give the salary at a probationary rate of 51,129 instead of the fiscal officer one title. So it's really just swapping it out.
Chris, I think you.
Yeah, thank you, Mr. Chair. I guess I want to make sure, I think Mark kind of alluded to this, probably the same question. But I'll be with that. There's zero budget impact.
Zero budget impact. It is this, it's a
Name
vacancy
change.
that's been there since January. And instead of filling it with a fiscal officer one grade 19, she's asking to amend that resolution and make it a junior accountant grade 19 CSEA.
Which won't have any impact on that budget specifically or the.
Or the subsequent budgets.
Very good, thank you.
Yep.
Any further discussion or question? If not, all in favor? Anybody opposed? Yes, thank you, Elaine. Chris?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Government Operations had 8 resolutions. GO7 was tabled, I think rightfully so, for further discussion. So at this time, I would offer 1 through 6 plus 8.
What?
Second.
Any discussion on any of those? If not, all in favor? Anybody opposed? Yes, thanks, Chris.
Thank you, Mr. Chair.
Planning has 2 resolutions, Mr. Chairman, been through committee. All approved and move forward. I'll entertain a motion to bundle.
Move it, Lucille.
Second.
Second, on any discussion? PL1, PL2. If not, all in favor? Anyone opposed? Yes, thank you. Andy?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Public Works has 10. They've been through both prior committees. That was a bundle unless somebody wants.
Move it, Lucille.
Second, Shay.
Been for moved and seconded. Any discussion? If not, all in favor? Anybody opposed? Yes, thank you. Thank you. Mark?
Additional public safety has 5 resolutions tonight. JP3 was pulled at committee, passed through both committees. I would offer JPs 1, 2, 4, and 5 as a bundle.
Move it, Shay.
A second.
Moved and seconded. Any discussion at all? If not, all in favor? Anyone opposed? Passed. Ledge 1.
I'll move it.
Second.
All right, discussion, ledge 1. Hearing none. All in favor?
Aye.
Anybody opposed? Yes, thank you.
Mr. Chairman.
Yes.
Before we adjourn. Stands next month is Student Government Month. 7/16. We started at 7:09 doing the actual governmental stuff. So we just did that in 7 minutes. Let's not do that next month with the kids here. Let's actually read resolutions. Let's actually, I'm not saying it's, I mean, we've done it for 8 years, or some of us have done it for 8 years. I get it, but let's not have a hour and 45-minute long meeting where 7 minutes of it is our actual legislating.
Anybody that's attended these before knows, why don't we do this? Each committee, if you could pick out maybe 1 or 2 of your resolutions, that way we cover everybody's committee. If you could do that, and then when I call on you.
For those who have never been through it before, I mean, you'll get I'm assuming we're gonna do it the same way. We'll get a student with us. We let them read the resolutions. We let them play government for the day. So just having them say, well, we got 10, so let's bundle it. That's no fun for the kid. So, let's do it to where let the kids.
Absolutely.
Kids will ask you how to vote because, like the past, well, we didn't do it the last few years, but 3 years ago, the one always asked me, why do you want to vote no? Just vote no. That's what I want.
Just vote no on the budget.
But let's just, do it a little more different than what we do normally.
Yeah, I'm glad you brought that up, Andy. Again, I'm asking all the committee chairs that why don't we pick 3 resolutions? You can decide which ones they are. All right, Bobby, please, both of them. That may be the most interesting to the students.
And
If you can do that, and then we'll go there.
And for the rest of us, have a couple questions for each other, you know what I mean? Even if we don't really just
be
make
respectful.
something up, you know? Why do they want to do this? Elaine? Tell us, you know?
Normally you look at me and say, another question?
Well,
Oh, it's really good.
normally we would, but you know.
I'm glad you brought that up, Annie. That's a very good point.
Chair, if I may, the ledge meeting that day is the 24th. It's at 10 a.m.
Yes.
At the park.
No, right.
No, it's here.
Meeting's here.
The lunch will be at.
Then we go
Yeah,
there. Okay.
the kids will.
10 a.m.
They'll probably come in 9:30, quarter to 10. Okay, don't forget again, Thursday night special meeting. Other than that, can I have a motion to adjourn?
Motion to adjourn.
Second,
Second.
all in favor?
Happy birthday to you.